Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Glad you could join me here. Right now it's 11:10, Sunday, April 11th, as I record this one. And I'm going to start with a little bit of local news. Rebecca and myself were out for a little bit of a drive just prior to me sitting down to film this episode. And the local police had blocked off a 16 block area down off of Colfax, and from Colfax and Race all the way up to Colfax and Josephine, and then over 2 blocks over to 17th. So they had a 16 block area cordoned off, and they were searching that for somebody, or doing something. They were definitely doing something, because they had what seemed to me to be like practically every unit in the area surrounding that. And they were definitely busy, right? And I've noticed that the police here in Denver have been really busy lately. You know, I see police and emergency vehicles doing things all the time. Everywhere I go, all the time, I'm seeing cop cars racing off to someplace, or ambulances going to something. I see the fire department responding to calls all the time now. And it just seems like there's an awful lot of activity happening in Denver. I don't know if that's indicative of the larger symptoms of breakdown. I kind of tend to believe it is. But I've noticed that the police are definitely very busy lately. And I see them and all kinds of emergency vehicles responding a lot, for sure. In other news, Rebecca and myself were out on the highway this morning, and I guess some folks were out taking their Corvettes for a little spin. We saw 4 really sweet Corvettes kind of zooming up the highway and making their way to someplace. They were pretty cool. Got a little bit of video of that, and that was kind of a cool moment. So to those 4 people that were out there driving their Vets, it was a nice day to do a little bit of driving, right? Indeed. We drove downtown quite a bit, and as we were driving down Colfax, we saw that the Atomic Cowboy, also known as the Denver Biscuit Company, was really jumping, man. They had a huge crowd kind of milling about outside, and everybody was eating, and it had sort of a return to normalcy, a little bit of a feel of normalcy, other than everybody standing around in masks, right? Then there was also a peaceful protest at the Capitol. I'm not exactly sure what it was for, because when I arrived to film it was the exact moment that it was basically breaking up, that they were done. But I do want to note for the record that 2 things happened. I had a kind of weird experience with the gal who was like, "Are you with the local media?" And I was like, "Kind of." And she goes, "Is it independent?" I said, "Yes." And she basically proceeded to give me this weird little spiel about how they wanted news coverage, but only if it was from people that were friendly to the cause. That's leftist think, because when I stopped to film the people, they were actually being peaceful. They were demonstrating what a peaceful demonstration actually looks like. They were not rioting. They were not throwing anything. They were not spray painting all over everything. They were not throwing rocks or breaking anything. They were as peaceful as you could possibly be. And they were merely exercising their right to peaceably assemble and support a cause that they believed in. Right? So I couldn't quite understand this whole thing about, we want media that's friendly to the event. It's like, well, these people aren't doing anything negative. I don't even know how you'd portray people that weren't doing anything bad in a negative way. But I guess that's the way that leftists think. Like, they're afraid that you're going to do whatever. But that's because they're so used to bias, and they're so used to having bias in everything that they do, that they can't recognize that maybe I just wanted to tell the story of, there was several hundred people, they were having some sort of demonstration, it seemed totally peaceful. I arrived right when it was breaking up. I didn't get to find out what it was about. I think it was like maybe for Burma or Myanmar, or because I think that's the same place. I'm not exactly sure which name they're going by these days, but it seemed like maybe it was for Burma, but I'm not 100% sure. But what I can say is it was totally peaceful. And I didn't understand that whole thing about we're looking for people that are friendly to the cause to cover it. Those people were totally peaceful. That didn't make any sense. I didn't get it. Then also, Rebecca and myself saw a really large group of people had gathered down at the city park, down adjacent to between the Capitol building and the courthouse building down there, and they were receiving food from, I guess, humanitarian groups. Yeah, there's a pretty large group of folks that were down there getting that today. And then I guess, before I wrap it up, Rebecca and myself, we were out driving around, and the homelessness issue is an interesting one because I've talked about homelessness a lot. And one of the things that I've noticed, or that we have noticed, is as we cover this issue, is that they mostly just kind of smush it around. It's like whack-a-mole, right? They'll smush one group of people in one place, and they'll clean up all their stuff and they'll move it away. And then they'll move to some other place and they'll set up shop for a while there. And they just sort of smush the problem from here to there to over here to over there. And they let it sort of sit in one place for a couple of weeks and then they push it somewhere else and they let it sit. And so you end up with this amorphous blob of homelessness and people just kind of constantly being shuffled around the Denver metro area. But it doesn't get better. It just becomes more hidden. They just keep shuffling it around so you don't see it so much. But it's like, in my opinion, it's getting worse. There's more and more people, and the whole thing is just getting worse with the homelessness. So I realize now, I think part of the reason that the news doesn't cover it very often, except when they're forced to, is because it's one of these subjects where it just doesn't seem to ever get better. It just sort of gradually, progressively gets worse. And with the economy and the way things are working right now, it's just getting worse. So Rebecca and myself have seen a lot of homelessness, and they're even sort of moving back into some of the areas. I did a video several videos back about how they'd cleaned up a particular area. The homeless are starting to come back to that area. So we just saw that yesterday, that a lot of homeless people were moving back into that area that had been cleaned up. So like I said, they just kind of smush it around and shuffle it around, and it doesn't really get better. I know that much, right? So I'm just thankful to be not living on the streets. I'm thankful for having this studio and for being able to record this show for you guys and to be able to produce this content, which I hope you guys enjoy, right? Indeed. All right. I think I've done enough jaw-jacking for tonight. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and comment. I really love when people do that. It helps the show. It helps the channel. I love interacting with people that leave comments that are helpful and that are thoughtful and that are meaningful and are not trolls and or not spammers trying to send you to some spam BS, right? But when people put comments, I love that. So thank you for the people that do that. If you wanted to repost it on Gab or on your social media thing, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that too. All of that helps. All right. I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Until we meet again on the next one, and I do hope that everybody joins me for that. The Matt Metler Podcast is a Matt Metler production, copyright 2021.